Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family. I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Matthew, are you ready? No, that was terrible. That was the worst Optimus Prime I have ever. As soon as it left my mouth, I was like, nope, I should not have done that. But you know what? I did it. That's a thing.
You know what? You gave it a try, man. That's all we can do here.
I mean, Peter Cullen. That voice is.
It's Peter.
That voice is so iconic. Like how do you match that?
Like I can't. I an Optimus Prime. You see, that's not even close, man. I feel like
I am Optimus. Autobots, roll out. Scourge, your time is up.
That's not bad. That's not bad. I like it.
I want my inner voice to be Peter Cullen. You can do better. It's like, you know what? I can do better, Optimus. I will be a better person.
There's more than meets the eye.
Do. Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, Matt, let the people know.
Yes, you're listening to Box Office Ventures.
Yeah, that too.
That too. You know.
You're already here.
You're already here.
You know where you at.
If you thought you were listening to anything else, I don't know where your mind's at. But yes, this week we are reviewing Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Now, we talked about this before. This is a kind of a big movie for Transformers.
It absolutely is.
Because it had a lot to prove on if Bumblebee was a fluke. It didn't have the greatest press when it came to the Michael Bay 5 films and its 3-hour-long runtime. So this movie with a new director and a different direction, like, it had a lot to prove. It's starring Anthony Ramos, Dominique Fishback, Dean Scott Vasquez. And also have voices of, like we already mentioned, Peter Cullen, Ron Perlman, Peter Dinklage, Michelle Yeoh, Pete Davidson, Liza Koshy, I believe, and Cristo Fernandez. He was in Ted Lasso. But yeah, directed by Stephen Caple Jr., who directed Creed 2, and written by 4 different writers. You had Joby Arnold, who wrote Army of the Dead and the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, Eric Hober?
Eric Hober? Yeah.
Hober? Yeah. I said it right. Thank you. Yeah. I know how to say words. He directed Red 1 and 2, Battleship, The Meg, and My Spy, which is a lot of variety there.
Yeah.
And then Darnell Metier, yeah, and Josh Peters also wrote the movie, and they made their feature film screenwriting debut with this one. So a lot of hands, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. But the main question we're going to answer later on in the show was it good? Did the Transformers make a comeback, Ernesto?
I guess they're going to have to tune in later or just skip ahead or go down to the description and find that timestamp and skip right ahead to the review.
That's right. So you can either do that or a better option, right? We got a whole bunch of show to get to before we even dive into Transformers: Rise of the Beast. So much so that we've skipped not 1 but 2 weeks worth of entertainment news, and we're going to dive right into it. We're going to catch up and catch up with some news, as well as talk about something a lot of stuff that just dropped this week. But first, Ernesto, this one's for you. This story right here is for you.
Okay.
And Studio Ghibli, and I hope I'm saying that right. Studio Ghibli. Yeah. Is it Ghibli or Ghibli? Studio Ghibli? I probably should have recognized the name before I said it.
That's fine.
I'm gonna go on and maybe we can get a better verb. Anyway, Studio Ghibli the Japanese anime production company, has decided to release its next film with no trailers and no promotional marketing whatsoever. The film is titled How Do You Live and is directed by Hiro Hey
Hayao Miyazaki.
Zaki. Yeah. The creative mind behind most of Studio Ghibli beloved films, such as Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, and Ponyo.
It's Ghibli. You said it right. I just looked
Ghibli?
it
I did. Okay, Ghibli. Is it Miyazaki? Did we say that? That was what it was? Miyazaki said that How Do You Live will be his final film. So those who are familiar with his work, this upcoming one will be his final film, which I did not know of. Studio Ghibli previously described the film as a grand fantasy, loosely inspired by Japanese author Genzaburo Yoshino's 1937 novel, How Do You Live? And it's about a coming-of-age story about the emotional and physiological development of a young boy after the death of his father. Studio Ghibli has only released one poster of the film back in December of 2022, almost like a teaser poster, so to speak, and has no plans to announce the plot summary, the voice cast, and the film setting or characters or anything about the film until it hit theaters. One of the producers on the film said there's an American movie coming out this summer, which he didn't name which one it was, and it's going to be released around the same time as his How Do You Live? And they've made 3 trailers for it and released them one at a time. If you watch all 3, you know everything that's going to happen in that movie. So how do moviegoers feel about that? There must be people, Ernesto, who, after watching all the trailers, don't want to actually go to the movie. So I wanted to do the opposite of that. That same producer also revealed that it was a compliment of Miyazaki about it was a compliment from Miyazaki about the first poster that ultimately convinced him to go with such a bold, bare bones approach to releasing the movie. The producer explained that I've been involved with our movies since 1984, but this was the first time the director genuinely praised me for the poster in which I guess he made or was a part of making. He says that this is the best poster you've ever made. He said, I feel like that was a hint, so I decided let's just go with one poster for the marketing. So no trailers, no TV commercials at all, no newspaper ads either. Deep down, I think that's what the moviegoers latently desire. How Do You Live hits theaters July 14th in Japan. There's no U.S. release date at this time. Ernesto.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Yeah.
Oof.
Sneeze up a storm over there.
I mean, that's how excited I am to hear about
That's
this
how
story.
excited you are, yes.
I think it's an interesting approach, but this in itself is the marketing approach for this movie because now we're talking about it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's what intrigued me to this movie in the first place. I was like, no posters. I mean, one poster, no trailers, no plot summary, no voice cast. There's nothing about it. And I kind of like what he kind of said at the end here. He said that, you know, we've said, we were talking about this many times. I mean, hell, we even talked about this probably 2 weeks ago. So many trailers out there. By the time you see all the trailers, the movie's spoiled for you. So in a world in which we just have the poster to go off of, and I'm sure that he's like, hey, people know what Studio Ghibli is. Like, we don't have to promote our movies. It's kind of like the same thing with Pixar. Excuse you. You're right. You're good. All right. We know what Pixar is. If we said Pixar's coming out with a new movie, that fan base is already going to watch no matter what the movie is because it's Pixar. So you already have that line right there. But I mean, I'm 100% interested in what this movie's about, even though I don't know anything about it. And I think that's the intrigue about it. Now, the only thing that sucks is that this movie's going to be released on July 14th, so a lot of people are going to be talking about it after it hits theaters, and us in the U.S. are probably going to get something spoiled if it's within our, channels of information. But if we can avoid it, I think that's...
But I think it's gonna create we're gonna want now, because now I want to know. Like when it comes out, I'm gonna want to know how it does. So
yes.
There's already that interest from this market. So it's just a matter of when it's gonna come to us.
So do you think that this is So what do you think of it? Because this in itself, this news, this not putting out anything promotional, is a fact of marketing in itself without paying for marketing. So how do you think that will go? Do you think that's a bold move? You think it's a smart move?
It's a roll of the dice. I mean, to be honest.
Yeah. But either way, I find this very interesting. I've never seen a Studio Ghibli film, and that might change soon. But as of right now, this is very intriguing to me. So hopefully, whenever this hits theaters, we can either watch this film or at least learn more about it and see how well it did in the box office. Because, hey, I'm rooting for a success here. Because maybe other movies would do the same. Maybe not go as bold as just release a poster, but at the very least, like I applauded. The last time I was impressed with marketing was Avengers Endgame because they were very, very secretive about that whole movie in general, and they're very clever about how they marketed the film. And I believe that if I remember correctly, in the trailers they only released about that. Like everything we saw was within the first 15 minutes or 20 minutes of the movie. And I think that was like obviously on purpose. So when we actually saw the movie, it was a genuine surprise. But now you go watch. I mean, Fast X is a great example, and we were talking about it when we were reviewing Fast X. Of how much of the movie we've seen the trailer, and that's not the only movie. There's plenty of them. That within 3 trailers you get the whole movie there. So I think this is a very interesting experiment that he's trying to do.
I'm here for it. 100% here for it.
Yeah. So hopefully we can watch this movie. How Do We Live? Yeah, it's coming out soon, later this year. Ernesto, let's talk about Moviepass. Do you remember Moviepass? What do you remember about it? Did you have Moviepass?
Excuse me. I did have it. I had it for a little bit in the very beginning until it went out of business. I had it at the very end.
Right.
I mean, it was enjoyable. I mean, we talked about it. We were wondering, like, this is a weird business model. But we're going to use it. But we see that this ship is going to start going down. And then it eventually did. But then it showed all the other things. It showed all the other theaters, which eventually led to the Regal Pass and now the AMC Pass. And then they came back. But there was like a waiting list. You had to like sign up to get more information.
So, Ernesto, I have the more information for you.
It's that
right
time.
Now. So, it's that time. So, let's strap in. I'm curious if you are intrigued. Right now, I'm sitting very pretty with my Regal Unlimited, and you're very happy with your AMC A-list.
It's going to be hard to sell me onto something else.
Right. So, Moviepass Beta actually dropped Memorial Day weekend, right at the start of, the start of the summer blockbuster season was with Guardians, but they came a little bit later. So when Little Mermaid came out, we still have a solid, 2 more months of the summer movie blockbuster season. So they're right in the time where people will be going to the movies the most. But now, is it worth it? Let's discuss first the plan, the general plan. So it's very similar of how Moviepass would work in like the last time. They would send you a credit card in which you would use to purchase movie tickets either at the theater, and I've been doing some research on it, and I can't tell if you can do it online or not. I think there is I think there is still a check-in process that you have to do, but I don't know if you have to physically, like, through the app. I'm unaware of the mechanics there, but how it was that you had to go to the theater, check in with the time, and then you have to go to the theater, tell the app what movie and showtime you're going to use, and then use the credit card from there. And it was location based, and then you can do one movie a day. And I think that was it. So now here's the new plan. Maybe a solid plan that will go off of. So here we go. The basic plan has 1 to 3 movies, which equates to 34 credits. They're using this credit system now. And I'll explain a little bit more how the credit system works. But for now, I'll just go over I'll go over the plans right now, and then we'll discuss the credits later. So the basic plan is equals to about 1 to 3 movies, and it's 34 credits for $10 a month. So we're back to that price point.
You said 34 a month?
34 credits for $10 a month. So 34 credits equals 1 to 3 movies.
Okay.
So that's their basic plan for $10 a month. Their standard plan gives you 72 credits, which equals to 3 to 7 movies, and it's $20 a month.
Okay.
Okay. The premium plan, which is 113 credits, equals to about 5 to 11 movies, and it's $30 a month. And then their pro plan, which is equals to 30 movies, they say, 640 credits, and it'll be $40 a month. So that's what we're working with right now. If you live in New York or the New York metro area or Southern California, there's a whole different pricing structure, and it's a lot more, ranging anywhere from $20 to $60 a month on the various plans I just talked about. So, I mean, New York and California, I guess that kind of makes sense. It's very expensive down there. And so that checks out. Anywhere else besides New York and California, those are the prices. The prices that I listed anywhere between $10 to $40. Now, how do the credits work? I think you can pretty much, it says work. I'm reading this right from the website. How credits work. A movie's credit value will vary based on demand and factors like time of day and day of the week. Credits give you ultimate flexibility. Save your credits for that blockbuster premiere or use them for a midweek matinee. It's up to you. So they have like a little chart here that says if you go on a Tuesday or a Monday or any type of weekday matinee, you'll utilize fewer credits. If you go like during the weekday evenings or weekend evenings or opening weekends, you're using more credits. So that's why I just don't know how much they cost. The credits, right? Like if I have the basic plan for 34 credits, how far can I stretch that? Or if I'm going opening night premiere, is that 34? And that's your one for the month, you know? I'm interested in that. However, they do have rollover credits, Ernesto. So use them to save up for a month full of releases, it says. Your credits roll over. You can have up to a maximum of 2 months of unused credits at any time in your account. For example, if your plan is for 34 credits per month, you can have up to 68 credits in your account. So you can save up for 2 months, but then in the third month, you're going to have to start using them or else they expire.
I wonder why that is. So they'll give you, like, let's say if you get 3 to 7 movies, you can see them at any time. Or
yes,
I can buy 2 tickets for me and somebody else. Like, how does that, like, how do they know that you're not doing that?
It's 1 ticket per day still.
Oh,
From
1 ticket per day. Okay.
I think it's still 1 ticket per day. So you can't see multiple movies within the same day, even though you have the credits for it. I think it's still 1 a day, at least from what I've gathered. It has not been confirmed. I went through their FAQs and they didn't really specify that. Speaking of FAQs, the biggest benefit that comes with Moviepass is that you can go to any theater you want. And I went the extra mile and looked at almost every popular movie theater here in Orlando, Ernesto, and it checks all the boxes. It checks every AMC theater. It checks every Regal theater. It checks in the Enzian. It checks in the Aloma Cinema and Grill. All the low-key ones, it still works for all of them. All the Cinemark theaters here in Orlando, it works for all of them. So it does give you that flexibility for... They said the most common used tier that people get is the 3 to 7 movies for $20 a month. That's their standard. That's the one that I would probably get as well. You know, on average, I'll probably use about like, I would say maybe 4 to 5 or so movies, give or take. But yeah, so then I went to their FAQs and started seeing some other ones. Let's see how much they cost, what movie theaters cancel. The credits, Rouge credit. Actually, I might have talked through all of them, actually. Yeah, it says 3 to 30 memberships. Oh, here's the other one. What kind of movies are included in my membership? You can, and I think might be the killer here. You can currently see most 2D movies with your Moviepass, but access to large format and premium screens is coming soon.
Okay.
So,
I mean, they had already lost me.
So... Anyway, I think that's the bulk of what Moviepass has to offer when they're trying to come back. They're in the beta phase right now, so it's not fully formed and they can change them. But what do you think here? Do you think this is...
Absolutely not.
Do you think...
Not for me, but I see this being for somebody who is maybe not loyal to a certain theater, who they don't care about, I don't know, because even then, like if you're going to the theaters and you're not going to see like a big blockbuster and that's not something you really use all the time, I don't know. I don't see the benefit when when these certain theaters already have better systems already set in place for their theater where you can build points, and because I'm assuming for Regal you still get points and stuff, right?
Well, I only get points when when my monthly subscription gets in, like any monetary value I put into Regal, I get the points
Okay.
for.
So not when you
So
book tickets.
so
Only when you go to concessions and your monthly payment.
correct. But if I had Moviepass, technically I would rank up more points because theoretically I would use Moviepass to pay for a ticket, right? And then they'll give me my ticket stub when I go
Yeah.
to the theater. At that point, I can type in the code from the ticket stub into my Regal account and then get the points from that. So technically, I'll be getting more Regal points, and I guess you can do the same thing with AMC if you went to an AMC theater. It does give you the flexibility, but I feel like it's a little too
See,
late.
but AMC, I get points every time I book a movie. Every time I book a movie, I get points for that movie.
Oh, do you really?
Now, actually, I don't know if I do for my monthly subscription. I would assume that I do, but I guess I'm not. I'm not entirely sure. But I know I do.
Yeah.
For every time I book a movie, and anytime I book extra movies, anytime I'm at the concession,
Right.
If you can pay for a medium and get a large, like you get free. They said I get like free and ices and free birthday popcorns, and
Yes.
you build up to like these $5 rewards, and then I'll save those up. I already have a system because I go so much. I'll save those up, and like when me and Hannah want to have like a date night, like that's what we go with. Like we'll go to the dine-in side, and then we'll just load up on all the rewards I've racked up.
Yeah, and I do something similar. Like, I mean, I'm still getting the rewards from my monthly payment, so that goes into the system. I also, every time you go to concessions, you rack up points, and then also they have freebies all the time. I have Regal Unlimited, right? So you can go as many times as you want, but sometimes in certain movies, on certain time of days, they allow you to bring a buddy with you.
Oh, see, now that's a cool added bonus.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So they're like, it's never for like the big ones. But it's like some of the smaller ones, there's like, you bring a friend.
Or maybe not open you. I wonder, like, now if you could bring a friend to go see Mario. You know what I mean? Like maybe.
Yeah, they haven't done it for
like
that.
Like if it's not for.
Yeah.
Oh, so even for the big releases, they don't.
No, I'm trying to remember the last like moderate one that I think. So like, do you remember the film Bodies that came out last September or so? Maybe not. It was an A24 movie, one of the horrors, an indie flick. It was one of their weird ones, gaining a little bit popularity, but that was one there's like, come bring a buddy. So it's like, I feel like more of the indies film. I think when Air came out, I was able to bring a buddy if I wanted to that. So like some of like this, but so far not the big blockbusters. But then every now and then Regal would also send me like, hey, for unlimited members only, we're doing an exclusive screening 2 days before the movie comes out, for example. So like there's stuff like that as well. And then they say they also get like also rewards that if I go opening weekend to see a movie, they'll give me an extra 1,000 points, or for whatever the case may be. So like there's a lot of perks there. I also get the birthday stuff as well. And so for the most part, like I would say every 3 or 4 times I would go to the movies, I'm able to rack up a free movie ticket from there. So, and then like that's what I used to get Megan into the theater as well. Cool. So yeah, from what we both described, we have our own perks and the own systems, and Moviepass at the end of the day will require more work for you to do, and it requires a lot more work because you're not directly working with the respective theater chains from there. Obviously, I think we've obviously said this before, that AMC is obviously the better subscription service because the big factor is that there's no upcharge if you want to see a movie in IMAX or Dolby. You get 3 movies a week, and it's for 20. What is it now? 22, 23?
It's either 21 or 22. I believe maybe 22.
Okay. So for $22 a month, you get 3 movies a week, and you can see it in any format you want. That's a game changer.
Yeah.
Whereas in Regal, I can see as many movies as I want. There's no cap on it. I can go to the theater all day if I wanted to. And as long as I just can't have the show times overlapping. That's my only restriction. But if I want to see it in a premium format, So in Regal's case, there's RPX and 40X and IMAX. I have to pay a premium, so I have to pay the difference. So in that case, like for 40X, it was like $8. For IMAX, is $4, and I think RPX is also like $4 or $5. So it's not like a huge upcharge, but it's still, it's not bad, but it's still something. And it's like, I think that's ranks in about $23 a month for that. So like, yeah, with Moviepass, there's a lot more that has to go into it. So with that, I think we're gonna have to pass on Moviepass. Hey. But for people who don't have access to the bigger theater chains and have more smaller indie showings, or if they don't want to be brand loyal, that's not bad. 3 to 7 movies a month for $20 a month, with a little extra work you put into it. It does give you the freedom to go at any theater you want to go to. That's not a bad option. I think they're in the step in the right direction to try to get more people back into Moviepass. But their failure did cause the bigger chains to get a better system going, and it's working perfectly fine from there. But with that, I think I was gonna save this one for later. We're kind of already on the topic. I have a cool little surprise story for you, Ernesto, that kind of is related to and I don't want to put it in the notes because I wanted to play a little game with it.
Okay.
That's why if you write it down, you're like, what is this? What does this idiot have in store for me? But Zach Swope, I think it's Swope, SWOPE, Swope. Zach Swope. Anyway, Zach has broken the record for most movies seen in theaters in a single year.
Using Regal?
Yes, he was using Regal. The record was at a screening for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and Zach still has a month. He still has over a month to go until the new record is set. So he was able to beat the previous record in 11 months.
Which in how much?
And that's the game. That's the game here. How many movies do you think he's seen in 11 months for him to beat the record of the most movies seen in the theaters in a single year?
What is the record? Am I allowed to know what the record is?
No, because he just beat it.
I'm gonna say it's only movies that have been in the theaters.
Correct. Movies. I'll say it again. He has broken the record for most movies seen in theaters in a single year. So the number I'm about to tell you, it's going to be more because there's still one more month left within the year.
I'm gonna say 1,000.
Okay, you overshot it a little bit. I'll give you one. I'll give you one more. It's not 1,000, but it's lower than 1,000. I'll give you one more guess.
739.
Wow, you were really close with that one. You were really close. Zach had seen 716 movies in a single year. In counting, he still has the rest of June to complete before he's already beaten the record. Now he's pushing it forward.
He's pushing
even more.
He's pushing it even more.
Correct.
716.
16.
Wow, that was pretty close.
You were pretty close. Yeah, it was really close. Like you overshot, and your second guess was like, I don't know, 730 something. I was like,
well, I mean, there hasn't been that many movies, but even that sounds like a lot of. That sounds like a lot of movies that have come out.
Well, here's the thing, right? What does that mean? Like, did you rewatch the same movies again, and that still counts?
I think it has to be.
Right? It has to be. Because in my head, it's like, it's more impressive if you've seen 716 different movies in the theater, which I guess is possible. There's a lot of indies in there, and it doesn't have to be exclusively with Regal Unlimited. It did said in the article, Zach used Regal Unlimited to help reach that goal, but he could have went to other theaters. As long as he has proof with his ticket stub, he could have achieved it that way. But if you have Regal Unlimited and you're seeing 716 movies, I really hope you're not going anywhere else to see the movie.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess why would you though? Because his plan to just every day, every free moment.
Every day
he has to go every day. Every day. That's his day. He's like, I'm gonna at
So
least
as-
see one movie.
So 365, or I guess 716 divided by 365. That's at least 2 movies a day.
At least. So
At least, and that's a year. So he did that in 11 months. So let's call it 335. So 17 divided by 335. He saw at least 2 movies. Yeah, at least 2 movies a day
that's wild.
in the theater. In the theater.
Yes.
In the theater.
And that
I've seen.
and that's
yeah.
and that's assuming he didn't go every day. So I mean, there's has to been days where he saw 3, and there might be a day where he was there like open to close. How many movies do you think you could squeeze in a day? If they open, most theaters open first showings at like what, 10 a.m.
Yeah.
That's 10 to 12. Let's say that's a 2-hour movie. 12 to 2. I guess you could probably knock out at least, if you really pushed it.
4 to 5.
You could 4 to 5. You think so?
I think you can. I've done 3 in a day before, but it was a long day. But like if I really want to hit like a 11 p.m., I can probably hit a 4th movie in there, even a 5th, depending how short the movies are too.
That's a good point. So I wonder if there was a day where he spent all day there, where it was like 10 open. He was there for the first showing, and he caught the last showing. Like, oh my gosh. I would have to take a break. I'd have to like go outside. Like, I gotta go for a walk. I can't just sit all day like that. Or I'd get a seat where I can like stand up and stretch my legs a little bit.
The most I've ever done was 4, legally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the record is 4. How many is that off the record? Is it 5 or 6?
No, it's still 4.
Oh, okay.
It's still 4. Oh, you're talking about like movies like movies in the theater is 4. Movies in a day? I've seen 7 movies in a day.
What?
I literally woke up and I just sat there. And it was a lot of 90-minute movies
okay.
that I watched. And it was just like I just sat home and I just like I had the list and I was just going through. When I had COVID, that's when I hit 7. I was just like I woke up and let's go for it.
I've been there before. It's a lot harder now because I have kids. Like I don't maybe when they leave, when they're all grown and have left and they're living their lives with their families, then maybe at that point I'll be able to do like 5 or 6. And even then, I don't know if I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't. It's not an everyday thing I want to do though.
No, that's like a one. That's like a one and done.
Yeah, like my average, I can say like maybe 2, like comfortably. Like I can squeeze in 2 in a day and within the rest of my day. I've done like, all days movies and stuff. But like, I guess if you equate it to like how much episodes you can watch in a day, it's same thing, But yeah, either way, that's one hell of a record. No way are we beating that anytime soon.
Also depends on how mentally taxing these movies are. Like,
true, my God.
Like, are you watching Tenet, or are you watching Coffee and Kareem?
Coffee and Kareem. Exactly. But yeah, so anyway, Moviepass is out there for anyone who's interested. If you want to try to beat the record, the current record is 716. You can maybe get it with Moviepass.
And that's in 11 months. So that's not even the actual record. And so if he's doing at least 3 or 4 a day, it might. What if his number is 739? I'm like, I'm playing the lotto. I want to know what his actual ending number is going to be now.
I by the end of June we'll get that number and I'll do a little update for you when I get the official word.
All
right. But yeah. So anyway, moving on. We're talking about blockbusters. Most recently, Disney made a slew of major changes and additions to the theatrical release schedule. Which
very interesting.
Right. With amongst the writers' strike. And with all the PR stuff that they have to deal with,
especially the Marvel one,
especially the Marvel ones, yeah, and the writer's strike, and however long it takes to make an Avatar movie nowadays, I feel like these delays and changes were kind of inevitable, and these schedule changes spans all across Disney's production companies. Like, it's not just Marvel or Disney. It's pretty much the only one that weren't get hit was Pixar. We're like, we're good over here.
Yeah, we're doing our own thing.
Yeah, we're doing our own thing. And Disney Animation is also doing just fine as well. But we'll first start with from Disney. The live-action Moana film is now slated to hit theaters June 27th, 2025. So they gave a release date for that. From Marvel Studios, this first one's exciting. Deadpool 3, previously stated for November 2024, has now moved to May 3rd, 2024. It moved up by 6 months. I'm excited for that.
That's very, very. I mean, it took Captain America's slot.
Yes, it did. Captain America, which now has the new title of Brave New World. I think that the previous title was New World Order. Now it's called Captain America Brave New World. Previously stated for that May 5th, 2024 slot, has now moved to July 26th, 2024. Thunderbolts, that had that release date, has moved to December 20th, 2024. Blade, which the previous release date of September 2024 has now moved to February 14th, 2025. Nothing says Happy Valentine's Day than Blade. Fantastic Four.
That's what I'm going to go see on Valentine's Day.
You're right at this point. Fantastic Four, which was slated for that Valentine's Day in 2025, has now moved to May 2nd, 2025, which makes a lot of sense to me. Like, having Fantastic Four at the kickoff the summer season rather than Valentine's Day, I feel like they'll do better there regardless.
Can I make a really small note on that? What's really crazy about that? So May 2nd is my wedding anniversary, and 2025 will be 10 years. What also released on my opening week, what else was opening weekend on my wedding was Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Really?
That was opening weekend because that was like what I did. That was like part of my thing I did for my wedding. Like, a bunch of us got together and we went to go to a screening. It was a lot of people, and we went to a screening. We went to the screening.
We're all Avengers.
Oh, Age of Ultron. I mean, it was Age of Ultron, but you know what? I had a great time. I don't care.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So
you did.
it's just ironic. So I guess I know what I'm doing on my 10-year wedding anniversary. I'm gonna go see Marvel's First Family.
Yeah, Marvel's First Family. Well, in the comics, as we discussed, we believe the first family is Guardians. Yeah,
the first cinematic family is Guardians.
There you go. Yes, exactly. This one's kind of a bummer, but also makes sense. Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, previously slated for May 2nd, 2025, have been pushed back a year to May 1st, 2026. And then since that one got pushed back by a year, Avengers: Secret Wars got pushed from its May 1st, 2026 release date and is now being released May 7th, 2027. So we are 4 years away from Secret Wars, 3 years away from Kang Dynasty. So there's that.
I'm okay with this because this seems like all post Iger things. Like once he took over, he's like, all right, let's push everything back so I can get my hands on all this shit and just make sure we're good. Like it just feels like this is all continuation from Bob Iger taking over. I mean, these are all major changes to these slates. I mean, especially what's the writer's strike and, Jonathan Majors, his issues, whatever they got to figure.
Absolutely.
Like, if they recast him, what are they going to do? I mean, I guess the easiest thing is to just make a variant that looks like somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an easy solution there. I mean,
the beauty of the multiverse is that
I know, right?
that can be easily written into the story.
Yes, easily written. And they've done it before. I'm surprised that, the only one that kind of benefited from this change is Deadpool 3, at least for us. That's after the Marvels, the next big Marvel release is Deadpool 3. So we have the next Marvel movie is the Marvels in November, and then we have Deadpool 3 in May. And so
I'm down.
And right now it's currently filming. We know that Captain America Brave New World is also filming, and then Thunderbolts is about to I think it's being held up by the writer's strike at the moment. But that's not slated for December 24, so there's plenty of time to start filming on that one. But yeah, currently Deadpool 3 and Captain America Brave New World are filming right now. And so I'm really excited for Deadpool 3. They said this one's going to kick off apparently this one's going to be the craziness of the multiverse. What we wanted in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Deadpool 3 is apparently going to be it. He's going to really break it, shatter it, and I'm ready for it.
Because now he's unshackled. It's like unshackled. Like, it's Deadpool really coming into the fold. Because before it's like, they would kind of mention it, but not really. But then this is going to be the crossover event. And it makes sense with Across the Spider-Verse. They're talking about all the things that are happening in the multiverse.
Yeah.
I'm loving that even with and kind of just mentioning Sony, like that there's loose connectivity that they still have between the entire Marvel. Like they're all still loosely connected. They're still leaving the threads. And so I'm interested
it's still open.
to see, because not only is this the thread to Deadpool, but Deadpool's coming over. Like, so like that, I want to see how that's written in, or if we're going to get a tease in that in the Marvels or in any of these properties that we're only. Let me see. I don't see it for Thunderbolts. I don't really see it for or Secret Invasion.
No. Maybe Fantastic Four might have something.
Maybe. I don't know. No.
But I feel like it should be its own thing before we dive into Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. And that's, because we have, because there's going to be Fantastic Four, wait a year, Kang Dynasty, wait a year, Secret Wars. So, So, interesting stuff here. From Lucasfilm, the 3 untitled Star Wars films have been given new dates, so we don't know which goes to which, but we know we're going to get a Star Wars movie on May 22nd, 2026, December 18th, 2026, so 2 movies in 2026, and then December 17th, 2027. So we're going to get the 3 we had previously discussed before, the one with Daisy Ridley in the future, the one with James Mangold in the Origin of the Jedi, and the one with Dave Filoni that's kind of encompassing all of the stuff that's been happening on Disney Plus with The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and all that stuff. So one of those movies are going to fit one of those release dates. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
It's like, sure.
One of them. And lastly, from 20th Century Studios, the Untitled Alien movie is now slated to hit theaters August 16th, 2024. And the next 3 are the big ones. Now, I'm going to say these dates very carefully because they are drastic changes. Avatar 3, previously stated for December 20th, 2024, now moves to December 19th, 2025. Gets pushed back by a year. Avatar 4, previously stated for December 18th, 2026, now moves to December 21st, 2029.
Wow.
That is a 3-year push. And then Avatar 5, previously slated for December 22nd, 2028, now moves to December 19th, 2031.
That's crazy to think about. We're talking about 2031 already?
2031. Now, granted, a lot of these, if you go back to the previous one, we see Star Wars taking up slots in 2026 and 2027. So that kind of makes sense. That why Avatar's not taking the December slot. So basically, between Star Wars and Avatar, they're going to be bouncing around for a little bit. So like Avatar 3 is in December 25. Lucasfilm is December 26. Then they take December 27. So far, nothing in December 28. And then you have Avatar 4 in 29. But regardless, those are 3 years pushed back, Ernesto. Like, are people still going to care about Avatar in 2031?
Matt, we said that.
I know.
I know. When did the first one come out compared to the
13 years ago.
So,
yes.
I think to answer your question, yes, they will care about the Avatar in that long. Because now he's proven himself. So now he can literally do whatever he wants. He doesn't. It could be another. They could push back the second one another 10 years, and I don't think anybody would care. Well, I'm sorry. I take that back because I feel like the second one truly kicked off a new adventure because we were left off in a place where we're unsure. Whereas the first one is a complete story. It's almost like to think about it. The first one is like a prologue to all. To 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it's its own self-contained story. So, but now we're in a point where we're in sequel material. So,
yes.
So, yes, he can take. I think it's okay for them to take more time, especially with the VFX. That's gonna how it's gonna be demanding, and plus it gives them time to really hone in on the story. That's part. I mean, that's the added bonus. We just you just have to be a little bit more patient. And I'm always down to be patient if we're going to get a good story.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not like waiting patiently for these movies. They're just going to pop up at some point because we waited so long. It's like eventually 2025 is going to be here. We're going to be talking about Avatar.
And it'll be a pretty movie to look at, but
yes,
there might be a little bit of depth, but not like,
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not going to go in there for the story. I'm going there for what technological advancement is he going to bring with his next movie?
And that's his marketing.
Yeah, which is fine.
You don't come because for the story, you come for the visual effects.
But guess what? It's good enough to bring people in the absolutely. That's what brings people to the theaters. Is that movie?
So much. It brings $2 billion worth of people into the theater.
Yeah. You just need to have doesn't need to be, the story doesn't need to be like super in depth, but he's got like 2 layers.
Yeah.
And then, but the technical achievements that his movies have is like 1 million layers. That's it.
Seriously.
It's so, they're just so good. Like it like the underwater, we talked about it when we reviewed it back when it came out. And like the underwater CGI was just unmatched.
Yeah, and now speaking of, Avatar: The Way of Water is now on Disney Plus.
Absolutely.
And on Max.
Yeah.
It's on both streaming services. Well, it's not weird. It's a pre-existing contract, so a lot of 20th Century Studios movies will be streaming on both for a little bit. But ultimately, when the contract is over on Max, it would just land on Disney Plus. Yeah. So yeah, those are all the schedule changes that Disney had announced. So a lot of switching around, but still a lot of good content to look forward to in the coming years. Moving on from that, Universal Pictures. We had briefly talked about this on our Fast X conversation. You can go listen to our spoiler review on that about 2 weeks ago on that episode 173 of, right? Yeah, that's 175 right now.
Yeah.
Jesus. 175.
Or
yep.
172?
Is it 172? Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, that is 172. Wow, that was 3 weeks ago we reviewed that.
Yeah, because then we had Brian on for Little Mermaid.
Yep, and we had Brandon on for the Spider-Verse.
That's right.
Or Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah,
that's right.
So yeah, 3 weeks ago. So we had briefly mentioned this, but now we got more details on what's exactly happening with the future of the Fast franchise. So Universal Pictures announced that Dwayne Johnson is returning to the Fast and Furious universe with a new standalone film, reprising his franchise role as Luke Hobbs. Chris Morgan, the writer of Hobbs and Shaw and The Fate of the Furious, has already written the script for the Untitled film. Though plot details and release date were not announced, Johnson took to social media to say in part, the next Fast and Furious film you'll see the legendary lawman in will be the Hobbs movie that will serve as a fresh new chapter serves up a new chapter and set up for Fast X Part 2, bridging the events between Fast X and Fast X Part 2. So my question is, because obviously this was the mid-credit scene in Fast X that he was returning, and the question that we had in our conversation when we reviewed Fast X was this a tease for him to come in Fast X Part 2, or was this a tease for another solo spin-off film? And I think we got that answer.
But I think this is what we predicted was going to happen, because him and The Rock still kind of have that beef.
Right. Which, I don't know, I feel like, and so then going back to Vin Diesel's comment of how we said that we might be having a third movie in the works, I don't know if this is what he meant by, so you have Fast X, you have this, Luke Hobbs, like solo movie that takes place in between the events of Fast X and Fast X Part 2, and then you have Fast X Part 2. And that is the trilogy that he was kind of teasing, and not Fast X Part 1, 2, and 3.
I'd be okay with. I think I would be okay with that. That seems like maybe so. That's going to be the connective tissue between the two. So that means and I haven't seen Hobbs and Shaw. So Idris Elba's in it. Does he die at the end of that movie?
If I remember correctly, he does.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Was it an off-screen death, or did you see him die?
It's been a while since I've seen the movie, so I don't remember
you
exactly.
You are the Fast and Furious expert. Okay? I just want to know if there's a possibility for him to come back either in this new movie that he's going to do, or if he's going to be in the final film.
At this point, I would say anything is possible in the Fast and Furious franchise.
They're all about bringing in the family.
All about bringing the family. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, or in that episode, that Ryan Reynolds was in Hobbs and Shaw, so he can make a return if he really wanted to. He did announce that Dwayne Johnson is doing a standalone film, meaning that the Shaw parts of Hobbs and Shaw, so meaning that Jason Statham is not returning in this in-between movie.
You don't think it's possible for him to return?
Well, I think it's possible for him to return, but if these are taking place between the events of Fast X and Fast X Part 2, I believe in Fast X, if I remember, Jason Statham left the group because his mother was in danger.
Yeah.
So I guess this could then bridge Jason Statham to be in the standalone.
Yeah, like he leaves them, so like it makes sense that he could link up with Hobb.
With Hobb, yeah, that makes sense actually. So yeah, if the trilogy that Vin Diesel was teasing is Fast X standalone movie, Fast X Part 2, I'm okay with it. But if it's Fast X standalone movie, Fast X Part 2, and Fast X Part 3, like we mentioned earlier, that's way too much. That's way too much.
Agreed.
So we'll see. We'll see about how this pans out. But at the very least, we got an answer of what Dwayne Johnson in that final end credit scene. So there's that. And the last piece of news we have for you this week is a little bit of casting news. Mason Thames, the kid, the main star in The Black Phone, and Nico Parker, she was a little girl in Dumbo, and she was also in The Last of Us. She played Pedro Pascal's daughter in The Last of Us in the first episode. Are set to star as Hiccup and Astrid in Universal's live-action adaptation of DreamWorks animation How to Train Your Dragon. Dean Du Bois, the director behind Lilo and Stitch, the animated Lilo and Stitch, and the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, will return to write and direct the live-action adaptation. The film will hit theaters March 14, 2025. This will be DreamWorks Animation's first live-action adaptation.
Here for it.
That's not bad casting.
No, I mean
that's not bad casting at all.
The Black Phone, that was a great film. How good!
Great film.
That was so good. And actually, I liked the daughter's character. Like when she, when she unfortunately passed away in the first episode, I was like, oh, that's it. I liked her. Like she would have been like, I felt like she was a good addition. But
yeah, now she's having a starring role. What I find more interesting, and I think we might have talked about this briefly, but like the director, Dean Du Bois, he directed all 3 How to Train Your Dragon movies, the animated versions. Does he not want to do anything else? He's writing and directing the live action version. He already made that movie. We saw his version. It was the first live action. It was the first How to Train Your Dragon movie. So he's directing it again.
Yeah, but now he gets to do live action. I mean, I get it. I mean, at least it would stay true to the vision. Now, it would be interesting to see what he changes. Like after all these years, he's had after it's been out for so long, and he's expanded on the property afterwards. Now he can go back. What if he can redo things the way he really wanted to tell the story?
Sure, and that is something interesting because this movie, by the time of this movie's release in 2025, it would have been 15 years since the original. So there's that. So obviously he's been with this project for 15 years now. He went from, and these animated movies, though, the last How to Train Your Dragon movie was in 2019, and I don't think he's directed anything else since that movie. So he just went from How to Train Your Dragon 1, 2, and 3, now the live action version. So you're right. You make a good point. I don't think, even with the Disney live action remakes, the same director did not do both.
No.
So this is interesting that this will be a first.
Now this will be this would be a good, like, animated to live action to see if it's really worth it. The guy who directed it, who made the magic of the first one, can he recreate that same magic, or is it going to be dull because it's the exact same thing? Like, is he going to give us the exact same thing, or is he going to take some things, take some liberties now that he has the chance to redo it?
True, and also give credit to DreamWorks Animation, just DreamWorks in general. They're not Disney.
True.
Even with the first Shrek, they were making fun of Disney right from the get-go and trying to be different from Disney. So maybe to continue that trend, they want to be different, and they might give us something different and not a reimagining, as Disney would call it. it would be something completely different, just under the How to Train a Dragon name. So you turn me around, Ernesto. I'm actually interested now.
That's what I'm here for, big guy.
That's what you're here for. Thanks, bud. So there you go. That's all the entertainment news we have for you guys this week. As always, you can go to our social media channels on Instagram at @boxoffice_bingers and on our Facebook page at Box Office Bingers to see all the latest and breaking news. We'll post it over there first, and then we'll come back on the show and we'll talk about it. A lot of news this week, but we did skip it for 2 weeks, so we got a lot to cover.
Yeah. And it was like a lot of
this
big
episode.
News.
A lot of big news that happened as well. But with that, we're going to be diving into a fun segment we like to call Whatcha Watchin. So, Ernesto, we'll start with you. What have you been watching?
Oof, Matthew.
Oh, boy.
So I finished Love and Death.
Okay. How was that?
It was great. Like, I thought it was extremely interesting. I don't know if I'm going to go back and watch Candy just because I left, like, it was just a satisfying retelling of this horrible event in history. Mm-hmm. It's Elizabeth Olsen plays Candy Montgomery, who murdered Rose Gore, I believe her name is. Let me get it. I mean, she murdered this woman. It started with an affair that she has with Jesse Plemons' character, Alan Gore. Betty Gore. It was Betty Gore and Alan Gore. And like, you go through the whole rigmarole. You go through the court case. I mean, it's not really a spoiler because it's an actual court case, but she gets off. She doesn't get proved innocent. She gets proved not guilty because she does admit to hacking her up 41 times. It's pretty brutal. It is pretty intense, but it's a really good story for them to try to get in the head of Candy Montgomery.
Interesting.
And I think Elizabeth Olsen played the hell out of it. I would love to see a nomination for her in that role. I think she did that good. She played it that good. There were times that I forgot that she was acting. She was that good.
Wow.
It was really shot really well, written really well. And of course at the end they give you the
little
the title cards of kind of the update of what has happened, and some of the stuff is just wild. Like the attorney, there's a scene where he's in the car and he's been held in contempt of court, so his wife is picking him up, and he's talking and he's defending Candy Montgomery, and his wife is like, you knew her. This is a small town. It's like, this is going to weigh on you for the rest of your life. And he gets her off. And then in 1998, he committed suicide.
Oh my God. Wow.
Like, it's a wild story. Like, it's pretty crazy how just the roller coaster of emotions it takes you on. Because in the beginning, if you don't know the story, it's like, oh, it's just about like her, and because I didn't watch the trailer. I went in blind. Right. So I didn't know. If I had watched the trailer, I would have known that it was about this murder and how that happens. But I think and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the Studio Ghibli movie. Like there's a blessing to going in blind, because like with no expectations, like because I was able to look at the scenes of their affair without the undercoating of like, oh, this is what's going to lead to the murder. So like, I felt like I was going through it with them as I was watching it, as opposed to already knowing some of the background information. It was nice not knowing the background information and learning it through the story as it was happening.
I feel like that similar sentiment that you just described is like watching an older movie without like the fluff that happened, like the drama that happened when it was released. Like, for example, we talked about Don't Worry, Darling.
First one that came to mind.
A lot of them, right? Yeah, a lot of the hype around it was to happen behind the scenes. Give that movie 2 years, someone just finds it on HBO Max, or I guess they go watch it on Max, like, oh, isn't that movie with Harry Styles in it? Yeah, I forgot about this movie. We should watch it. And then they watch it and watching it from the movie itself, not even associating it from the drama that happened before it's released.
Very true.
There's something kind of nice about that. Like,
absolutely.
Not knowing for sure.
We also are still watching Yellowstone. We are burning through Yellowstone.
You're in season 3?
We're almost to season 3. We're like
Okay,
halfway
okay.
through. Remember, each episode is like a movie. So
Yes.
So
You said burning, so I figured he's already in season 3.
yeah, we're pretty close. Like maybe
Okay.
like 1 or 2 more episodes, and we'll be on season 3.
Wow.
The writing is so good. It's just such a great story. So, what they really did well, and this was just in an episode we watched last night. They gave you a really well earned character moments. Like you look at this character who's like all through the first season, he's like this dumbass that everybody just shits on, and he doesn't get a redeeming moment until the middle of season 2. So you have an entire season of everybody just shitting on this guy, and he gets this moment. And where he does something great, and he's finally achieved something for himself, but you get the way that you really get to experience it with him, and it's just a really well earned moment. It was a moment like my wife were like damn, like this moment should not have hit, but it hit, and we're binging it. So I can only imagine people who are watching it week to week and waited and actually grew with this character over a year. Well, I guess that's a year and a half or 2 years, whatever.
Yeah.
However, what the release date is, like that must have been like a really, really great moment in that time if you had grown with that character through that time. So.
Right.
Like, and we're early on, so I'm actually really excited to see like that kind of writing is just it excites me for what's to come later on. And there's just like a lot of other crazy stuff. Like it's wild. It's definitely worth the watch, man. It's worth your time. I know there's a huge commitment. Like, but it's one that you can put on the just like one episode at a time. Like it's just like don't look at the end. Don't look at the end because once you finish this one, that's still ongoing. So like season 5 just dropped. So that means there's still a season 6 that's gonna come later. Like there's also prequels that are done.
That's season 5, part 1. So like
that's right.
That's
right.
finished.
That's right.
So it's still got part 2 to drop. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's great. I'm glad we've picked this up. It's been a great show to pick up. Some movies. So that's all I got for shows. But I got some movies that I've also watched. So I showed my son Edward the movie Rookie of the Year. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yes, I've seen Rookie of the Year.
Such a great movie. He wasn't really interested. Like it caught his attention for like the first half, but he wasn't really feeling it towards the end. But I liked it. I think it's a great movie. I think it's so funny.
What, 90s?
Yeah, early 90s.
Yeah, early 90s. Yeah.
And also, I've kind of buried the lead. This is the big one I watched. I watched the Flamin' Hot movie on Hulu.
Oh, with Eva Longoria as the director?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna give you my review. So she gives a great movie, kind of detailing what the American dream, showcasing Richard Montanez, who took a rise from a janitor to an executive with his contribution with the creation of the Flaming Hot Cheetos. The movie is based on his memoir, A Boy, a Burrito, and a Cookie, about how he rose through the ranks and, basically what the movie's about. So at face value, this movie is great. What a great movie. Like, just well constructed. Like, there's great character moments, like really seeing this man rise through the ranks and the things he did about, key moments about how him and his family created the recipe for the Flaming Hot Cheeto, how he called Richard, his name escapes me, Enrico, the CEO, Tony Shalhoub's character in the movie. It's well known that it's not true, that there are a lot of major inconsistencies between the true story and what actually happened. Now, what is true is that he did help in the marketing aspect, in the creation of it, and the grassroots effort to try to build up popularity for it. But apparently, like, he didn't create the Flaming Hot recipe Cheeto. For the Flaming Hot Cheeto, it was already in development by a scientist in Frito-Lay, which, like, the LA Times did a huge expose apparently back in 2021, and they told Eva Longoria, and her response was, don't they have something else better to do than to write about this? Not even negating the fact that there are inconsistencies, but it's like, well, we're already in production. We're going to just keep pushing forward. Like, I don't know. It's just very disappointing. Like, you still could have told the true story. I guess they're sticking with his side of the story, because in the this is his story from the memoir of how he
memoir.
So this is his account of the events. This is the story from his truth. Like, they acknowledge him for the flaming hot popcorn, not even for the Cheeto itself. Like, it just, like, I watched the movie and I wanted to, you know, I looked up the fact versus fiction, and then I go down this rabbit hole of like how it's not true, and like how, like, they're telling people, like, just to take it at face value, because his thing is like, well, there's things that are documented and there's things that happen behind the scenes that are not going to be documented, that I know are true, but they won't admit that it's true. So, but maybe there is some of that. There could be some of that. But maybe, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there. I mean, obviously they made him an executive, so he does have an influence. But now I'm watching the movie and I go back and think about the movie and I'm like, well, how much of it do I take at face value? Like, or how much of this is horseshit?
Well, I guess I guess at this point, what's more important to you, the real story or the movie you just watched?
I think the movie tells a great.
I think there can be a middle.
I do agree with you. I do think that there's room for both, but the problem is that he already did achieve great things. Why do we need to puff up the story in this manner? And this is what I have a problem with these biopics. Like, I feel like you're doing a disservice, and in this case, it's a little different because he is the one that's saying that that's his story. So in this case, it is a little different. But just in general, like, when they take liberties like that, when they knowingly take liberties. Or like this, it's like, well, there's so many inconsistencies. It's I don't know. I don't know. I'm very 50-50 on the issue, because, like, then don't list it as a true story, or like why are there inconsistencies between your story and their story? Like, what is the deal? Like, what is the deal with that? Like, why? You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand.
I mean, it's based off of, like you said, it's based off of his memoir. So, like you said, it's a kind of a hard, like, it's based off of technically a book that he wrote, and these are his words, and so that's what the movie is based off of. We've seen this, and it's kind of the same thing with Blonde. A lot of the stuff that happened in Blonde wasn't 100% accurate, but it was off of a book from a reporter, and that's what the movie's being based off. Or no, a book off of somebody
who was like, it was based off speculation reports of like who she was with and things that she were doing, and how it connected to how she lived the rest of her life. I think is what it was.
Right. That's right. So it wasn't necessarily all true, but it was true to the book.
Correct.
So that's where, I guess that's where the debate comes in, of like, you know, the real story of what the version of there is. And like, I guess in a way, talking about the middle ground, if the movie kind of presented it in a way that it was based off, well, this is what I thought happened in the movie. But you can, it's kind of like one of those situations where you can determine what you feel after knowing all of this, you know, but apparently that's not what happened in this movie.
Yeah.
But you do have me intrigued though, because you're 50-50 on it, makes you want to watch it.
But I'm not 50-50 on the movie. The movie was great. I actually really, and I think that's the problem I have, is that I've really enjoyed the movie, because I went, because they're telling me it's a true story, but then I do this research and it's like there's all these inconsistencies. It's like, well, what is that? You know, I don't know.
Right. Interesting. Okay, I'm intrigued. I wasn't going to give that movie a look, but now you have me interested.
I'm curious for you to. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, I think the movie's great. I think it tells a great story.
Okay.
I mean, it's an immigrant underdog story. You know, he immigrated over here, and he went from literally nothing, and somebody took a chance on him, and he was able to grind his way all the way up. You know?
Yeah. I mean, definitely a story that makes sense that Eva Longoria will be directing.
Yeah.
So I'll put it that way. But yeah. But anyway, what else you got?
So I've watched the 1989 Michael Keaton's Batman. I'm kind of prepping myself for Flash, and I've also, that's all I've been watching. But I've also reread the Flashpoint comic book. And I
Okay.
watched, and I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I watched an animated film on Max. Or I may not have mentioned it. I don't remember. We've had
Which animated
they
film?
have
Sorry.
the Flashpoint Paradox on Max, which is the Flashpoint storyline. It's their version of it, of the film in animated
Of the film?
of the story in animated form.
Of the Star. Okay.
And it's
Got it.
great. It's good. It's really good. It's
yeah.
very dark, but it does tell the Flashpoint story, which is what the movie is which is what the movie is going to be about.
Right. Just as a tease, I know you just mentioned it. I also watched Batman 1989. I want to save it for next week. When we have a fuller discussion, but I'm also starting my binge, and I will say this: either I've never seen that movie before, or I don't remember that movie
It's
at
from
all.
the late '80s, Matthew.
Yeah, 1989, and then I think early '90s is Batman Returns, which again I'm on the fence of. I don't remember if I've seen it before or if I'm about to watch it for the first time. But that discussion based off the review, I kind of want to. I'm curious on your rewatch thoughts. I guess we've seen a lot of iterations of Batman since 1989.
I think this is the one that kicked it off. So I mean, I'm a Michael. I've watched this movie religiously when I was a kid. I used to watch this movie over and over and over and over again. This is Michael Keaton and Kevin Conroy are my Batman.
Oh, you're Batman. Okay. I would disagree with myself. But then again,
you think it's George Clooney bat nipples?
No, I don't. What if it is, Ernesto? What if it is? We stand with bat nipples. But yeah, we'll discuss further next week.
Okay, well then that's all I got.
Okay, that's all you got. So with that, I did some prep for Transformers, which we'll dive into in a second. But aside from the prep for Transformers, I watched one show. I watched the whole season in a day. There's only one season out right now, and it's a show that you recommended. That in kind of in lieu of Transformers, I watched Transformers. And I was like, you know what? I like Dominique Fishback. I'm gonna give Swarm a look. And I binged it in a day. I started at 3 and I ended like at 9.
Isn't it wild?
It was one after the other. 7 episodes. I was like, I'm hooked, man. 30 minutes goes by quick in that show. And
she's really good. I guess we called her all the way from Project Power. Like
we did.
She's a great actress.
What's crazy is that honestly, like for her, like her acting chops, in my opinion, I really saw in episode 4, the episode with Billie Eilish. And we're gonna be diving into spoilers on this show because I know Ernesto have seen it, and we got some things that we got to discuss here.
You might have to refresh my memory. It has been it has been a while since a couple weeks since I watched it.
Yeah. But the episode of Billie Eilish where she goes into like this cult
yes.
all women's group. Yeah. And I was like, is that Billie Eilish? And sure enough it is. Which, by the way, she did great in that episode, Billie Eilish. I was like surprised. I'd never seen her act before, and so like she did a really good job. It was very mesmerizing and like intense in some of those.
Kind of reminds me of Lady Gaga acting level.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. I can see it. But yeah, when like basically when Dominique Fishback was getting like hypnotized, like in this trance, that's when I saw her true acting ability in that scene. I was like, damn, she's good. She is so good. And this series is so offbeat. And I think you already know, episode 6 was the mockumentary. I loved that episode. Right? I was like, what is happening right now? What are they doing? And then I'm like, because then it made me look, it's like, oh, this is a real person. And it's not.
No, but the events are real.
It's not a real... But the events in which... So it took me a minute. I had to like read a few things and really fully understand it. But the events were inspired by either real life murders or fan related deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is that the idea? Based off of a fictional character that Dominique Fishback plays.
Yeah,
And
she was the connecting fiber between these stories. Like
sure.
they made that was the narrative, is that they took these stories and they put them in a person because they're all different events. And so
Right.
instead of telling these different little stories, let's put it into one person to encapsulate the person that the beehive creates. It's kind of how what I saw.
Right.
Like,
Yes. The toxicity
ooh, there you go.
of.
Wow, man, look at you.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Big-
Big word. Big
big
word.
words.
Yeah. Thank you. Of like fan base can
Correct.
be, how like toxic it can be, how crazy it can be related to these murders that were happening all across the country. And so much so when we get to episode 6 and we get to that mockumentary, I was literally like, this is based. It fooled me.
Yeah, I was like, what
Knowing
the?
the
And the
fact
fact
that
that they kept bleeping out her name, and then they would be mouthing
Yes.
not Nija, but they would be mouthing Beyonce.
Beyonce. Yes. It took me a minute to, like halfway through the episode, like, they're not saying Nija. Like what? They're saying Beyonce. And when they got like the Beehive representative, it's like, oh, that's not us. That's not me. It's like, no, they're talking about Beyonce.
Yes.
I was like, my God, I'm freaking out right now. It's like, it's not making any sense to me. But it's a mind
Yeah.
fuck, that show, and it's wild. That show is wild.
Donald Glover, man, he's
Donald
on the creator. To me, he's on the creator level of Jordan Peele. I see him and Jordan Peele, where they're great comedic geniuses. Like they're so great as comedians, but they are able to tap into this other darker side of them. You know, like I don't know. I'm here. I'm really enjoying all of their work. Both of them, all of their work.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how the story kind of evolved, and really how much like devotion and like she was willing to kill for the thing that she was very passionate about, which is scary. And I feel like we're not that far off based on how people either talk on social media or react to certain things, or how they kind of just freak out when they see something that they love. And it's not necessarily have to be an artist, but anything that they're passionate about. Like I think when you first talked about this show, I mentioned Star Wars. I feel like a Star Wars fan base can get to this level because of like they basically humiliated one of the actors. Something, I forgot her name, but she played. Wow, I'm drawing a blank right now. But she was in The Last Jedi, and it kind of warded her off Star Wars altogether because of the ridicule that they gave this actress. And she's only just part of the movie. She like, and it was unfair for that. Like, it's like that's so damaging.
Are you talking about the
And even
Asian
with
actress from Last Jedi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yes. And so yeah, it's horrible that she even went through that, and that's just a small part of what this show kind of exaggerated on, of how people can be crazy about the fan base. And she was literally willing to go broke and get a credit card and spend $1,000 worth of ticket when she has no money just to see this person live, and she has nothing. Like the artist is not affiliated with the fans to that level whatsoever. And like you have created this fantasy in your head in which it's just not real, which is crazy. But yeah, it was a very interesting show. Bravo for Amazon to put that out. I think it was released all at once, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure.
But yeah,
But
it was
so good.
interesting watch.
It was
interesting watch.
Very interesting. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad.
Yeah, I was hooked. Like episode 1 kind of intrigued me. It was 2 and 3 that got me along, and it was 4 that sold me. And then that was halfway through the series, but still, at that point I was already committed to it. But just like the level they're willing to go to for the thing that they are passionate about, it was insane to me. So much so that she was stalking people and just straight up murdering them for saying anything negative about Nija in this scenario. And then she was like, "Who's your favorite artist?"
So weird.
And that's like a serial killer saying that you can do, is like, "You want to know how I got these scars?" Like that's how the Joker would start a conversation before he would do something like that. He's like, "Who's your favorite?"
Just to the level she went. Like the whole reason she was working at that strip club was to find that guy who said something about Nija online, and just was trying to find her moment to try to get to him, to find him,
Mm-hmm.
just so she can do whatever she wanted. Just, what's your favorite artist?
Yeah, it's kind of like so what's your favorite scary movie? Yeah, that's very the line that they took it from. But yeah, Wild Show. It's on Amazon Prime. Hopefully, I didn't spoil too much, but it's on Prime, so definitely go give it a watch. But yeah, it's a quick binge too. Like I said, I was able to finish it within like I don't know, like within the 6 hour time frame, and so it's not too bad. But yeah, and then the other two things that I watched Bumblebee, and I watched the first Transformers. I said I would try to hit those two at the very least, watching into Transformers Rise of the Beast. What I did though is I watched Bumblebee, then I went to the theater and saw Transformers Rise of the Beast, and then because I was still in the mood, I watched Michael Bay's first Transformers movie. So that was the order in which I watched it, and I got an interesting
take
on it. Yeah. Kind of like where they're going and where it kind of started and where that started and how that was going and all that stuff. But this is a great segue, and we'll kind of dive into this, into our spoiler review of Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. And Ernesto, did you get a chance to watch Bumblebee before this movie? I didn't,
but what I will say is that I'm kind of, if I don't need to rewatch everything. Like, I don't, depending on the property. This one I wasn't willing to, so I kind of wanted to go in with let's see if the movie warrants for me to see Bumblebee. And I will say, just for that fact alone, that I think the movie, like, you don't need to watch. Absolutely. It's not priority viewing. Like, you can go into this blind, not watching any other Transformers movie.
Yeah, and Bumblebee took place in the 80s. Transformers Rise of the Beast took place in the 90s. So this is still within canon. They're still trying to keep it together that all of this took place before the first Transformers movie in 2007. And so if I was following along in that way, I kind of watched it in chronological order, in which Bumblebee was number 1, Rise of the Beast was 2, and then Transformers would then be 3. And so when I watched Bumblebee, it's sitting at a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is very generous in my opinion. It does not deserve to be 91, but it was fine.
When it came out, that movie was everything. Like, that movie was so big when it came out.
Yes, and also it was such a huge left turn from what Michael Bay was pumping for the last few years. So
at least with the new director, we thought, because then we found out that there were shots from the island in the chase scene with the Decepticons around the highway. It's literally shot for shot the same. He just slapped the Transformer on top.
Yeah, but yeah, so Bumblebee wasn't a bad watch. But to your credit, going into Rise of the Beast, they don't really mention it except for one line where Optimus was like, I know you have your relationship with the humans, but not all humans are like that one. And that was it. That was the only line that was referenced to Bumblebee. But it's a good standalone movie. Yeah. It's not a bad one. And it does leave.
I saw an interview with the director, and there apparently is a deleted scene that is a much longer moment that gives ode to the Bumblebee movie. I think he shows a picture to Optimus, and there's like a whole scene between all that, but it got cut out of the film.
Which I think it's fine. It didn't need to be there. It didn't need to be there at all. I think Bumblebee works as its own standalone movie, and even how Bumblebee ended does set up for Rise of the Beasts. So it still does a good job of setting up to the events of this movie, and it also doesn't need it to be necessary viewing. So with that, I will dive into. And I also think that even watching Rise of the Beast and then watching Transformers after that, it still works. They still, within the story, it still works for what they're trying. If we're gonna watch these all in this chronological order, in which this happens, it still works for it. But watching Rise of the Beast and watching Transformers, man, what a different movie they are.
Of course.
Night and day. But I will say this, because I still have a soft spot for the first Transformers movie, and since I was already in the mood when I watched it, it kind of slowed down for me a little bit. But I've seen a lot more Michael Bay movies since I've seen Transformers. Like I've seen them again, like some of the older ones, and it's very much a Michael Bay movie. You have the Dutch angles, the stylistic slow motions that he uses in other movies, the fast talking. Man, Shia LaBeouf was talking like a mile a minute in those movies. But the one scene that still got me was with Bernie Mac. With Bernie Mac.
I love that scene.
Hey, Mammy! I replayed it twice because it still cracked me up, and he's like, oh, I love my sweet old mammy, hey mammy, and then she throws the finger at him. He's like, oh, if I had a rock, I'll bust your head,
bitch.
And I was like, damn. Oh my god, it's still hits all these years later. It's so funny as hell. Rest in peace,
Yeah.
Bernie Mac. But anyway, let's again dive into our spoiler review of Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Ernesto, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the film?
I really like this movie. Like, I went in with my thoughts on this one are very similar to how I saw the first Thor movie. I went in with 0 to no expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's got some one-liner cheesiness, but they found a way to make it fit within the story. I think the director did a really good job of like giving us more of a centralized story where you got to like actually, you see Optimus going through shit where he's like, you really dwelling on how he lost, how many people he's lost, and how his actions have affected his team, I felt like we got more intimate with the Autobots and even the Maximals, like really learning about them.
Yes.
And I think that's what was missing from the subsequent Transformers movies, where it was all about the action, but there was no really a connected storyline for us to really care about the Decepticons. It was more about the humans, where I felt like this one it was more balanced. Like, we did get a storyline. Like, I really felt for Anthony Ramos's character. Like, when he had his rising moment, like, I felt, and he was like becoming like the hero and like the person he's meant to be. Like, I was there with him. I was feeling the emotions with him. Like, I was there. I was in it for that part of the movie. There wasn't really anything that pulled me out. I thought everything, it was good. The action was good. The little cheesy one-liners, they seemed to work. All the voice acting was good. I really liked the Scourge as a mini villain to Omnicron. I enjoyed it. The score hits. Steve
Oh my god, the score hit.
He brings it again for this one.
Well, he did themes. He didn't do the score.
Really?
Yeah, he a different composer, a brand new composer, did the score, but he did. He did 3 themes, but those are the themes that hit.
those are the ones that really hit for me.
Yeah, just trying to remember. I want to get the name right for. Here we go. I don't even know that. Jognik Bon Thames. Jognik Bon Thames. When I look at him at Apple Music, the only thing he's done is this soundtrack and is this score.
Well,
so
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here for it. I thought it was really well done. It really added to the movie. I think maybe where some people might say the story's not there, but I think this is meant for a younger audience. And I saw it with my two older boys, and they loved it. And maybe that's part of my enjoyment is seeing them enjoy it. But
sure,
I found myself wrapped up into the movie. But I do have a movie theater experience story to tell you.
Oh no.
So
here we go.
I was like, you know what? I picked a matinee. So you know what? I don't normally put myself in the middle of the theater, but I'm gonna pick my row, and we got the right dead center of the screen. It's like, oh, this will be fun. 2 people sit not like skip a seat. They are in the seats directly next to me. On top of that, they were on their phone the entire film.
I would have moved.
I got up and went to the front desk and complained, and they did nothing.
What are they gonna do, Ernesto?
But what the fuck? I don't know. So what's the point of me telling them?
Yeah.
What was the point of me telling him? Okay, bye.
You saw your movie, right? Okay.
But it's just so annoying. But like, why do I have to get? I just don't feel the need to have to say so. I shouldn't have to say something to them. But I made it pretty. Every time he was on his phone, I took my water bottle. I'm so passive aggressive. I just took my water bottle and I'd be like, "This is gonna get really loud if you're listening." It's like really aggressive. I was real aggressive on purpose, and I'd be like,
just shaking the So let me ask you this: was it an empty?
yes. Next to
Okay,
us, literally
that's the
after
no-no.
him, the entire row was empty all the way into the aisle. I'm like, every so often, when he would look on his phone, I would sit closer to him, and I would still be watching the movie, but I'd be like purposely leaning all the way over onto his side to make it very obvious that he would think I'm looking at his phone. I was so fucking mad. Whatever.
At that point, I would have gotten up and moved somewhere else. I know you were with your kids,
But guess what, Matt? That still let me enjoy the entire. I still enjoyed.
That's fair.
Like the movie's good enough that I had to deal with that, and I still enjoyed the entire movie.
That's fair.
So-
That's fair. I think going to your point, like it being a more human story, I think part of the appeal, and I also enjoyed the movie. Very similar to you, I went in with very low expectations, and I think that helped when the movie was actually good.
Yes.
It was like, oh, okay, this is actually not that bad.
Yes.
And we're telling a decent story here, and I think kicking off what this movie, and sorry Michael Bay, you're just not good at it. What this movie excels at is telling a movie about you got some culture in there. You got some
Absolutely.
diversity in there. Like, you have, Hispanic in New York, right? It was New York, right? The Bronx?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the Bronx, yeah. Struggling to pay rent, and you have this kid who needs medical attention. That's already pulling on your heartstrings right there alone. Like none of the other movies had that. It was a bunch of chaos and these big budget, scenes, which this movie still had.
They did.
But just you had that emotion. You just still had that emotional string there. A very loose one, but you still had one. And the connection with Anthony Ramos really worked for the movie
And
because
Mirage
it was
and Pete Davidson. Wow, what a surprise! Surprisingly, I was
Yes!
really blown away. To be honest, I was blown away by his performance. Only because I had no expectations from him.
So I didn't really go into the movie looking at the voice cast for this movie. I know Peter Cullen was coming back as Optimus Prime. I know Anthony Ramos and Dominic Fishback. That was it. I didn't know who voiced the other robots because I didn't care.
Yeah.
And then I was like, is that Pete Davidson? And then I was like, that's 100% Pete Davidson. Like that swagger that he had in the voice, and it's like, I'm Pete Davidson. That actually wasn't that bad.
Just like that. That's exactly how he sounded.
Hey, Anthony Ramos. Yeah, it's not that. That's pretty close. Anyway.
What am I gonna do with you, Matthew?
There's a part of me that wants to continue with the voice, but I'm just gonna cut it for now.
Please stop. We've had enough. We got it. I think you did fine.
It's a transformer.
It's a transformer. I also love the little callback, and I don't know if it was intentional. It more than likely was, with the little callback to Marky Mark with Mirage and Anthony Ramos. Like, oh, Marky Mark, he's gonna be an actor.
Yes.
Like he was a. Last I heard, he was a singer. He was part of the Funky Bunch. He's gonna try acting now.
I thought that was funny.
That was
the
funny.
relationship between Mirage and Anthony Ramos's character
And his brother, the three of them.
and his brother, three of them really worked for the movie. They really unfortunately, very quickly, they formed between the three of them a better bond as human to Transformer, better than 3 movies worth of Shia LaBeouf and Bumblebee.
Agreed.
And
Yes.
I after going back and watching, the first Transformers movie, yeah, the connection was there, but it was so muddled with everything else that was happening in the Transformers movie. When you really look at the connection between Bumblebee and Shia LaBeouf, once Optimus Prime and everyone comes into play and they stop, utilizing and they start going into like Sector 7, all that military stuff in the film, we lose the human, robot, relationship in that movie, and we went right for we need to save the world mode. Where in this one, it was always there, and it got stronger when Mirage and Anthony Ramos became buddies at that point. And then you even had that one scene where it's like, "Hey man, I need to talk with you." He's like, "Oh, me? Okay." And like the little brother's like, "Hey, you got to bring him back." It's like he was like putting off his big boy pants, like his little brother. He was like trying to put, "Hey, you big robot. Yeah,
make sure he comes back.
Make sure he's come back." And he's like, "All right, little man, I got you." You know what I mean? And so it's like that was like it was a sweet moment in the movie.
Yeah, and then later on he like morphed the radio into his armor or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, damn, like that was great. Like I don't know, like it was all great. And then like his brother's talking to him, and like you get that moment where he's like right before he becomes like the suit of armor, which I don't know if that's a thing from Transformers. I'm assuming that it is.
So we'll get to the ending of the movie in a second. But when he turned into Iron Man at the end of this movie, I was like, that's a stretch.
Unless it's something that is canon with the franchise.
Sure, which I don't know. I don't know if anyone ever turned into Iron Man or like a morphed Transformer.
Yes,
in that,
thing.
But
it is.
It's
yeah, I'm looking at a screenshot from the cartoon. It's an exosuit Transformers from the Transformers wiki. So this is Transformers wiki. An exosuit is form of powered armor used by humans and other humanoids. They are usually used to protect aware hostile environments such as vacuum of space, deep water, or the middle of battle between warring factions of giant robots.
Okay.
So cartoon continuity, it was in the cartoon, it was in the Great Transformer War, the Headmasters cartoon. So it is most definitely a thing.
Okay. So that they didn't just pull it out of their ass.
No.
I guess that's better. That's better to hear that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a little much, and mainly because I've never seen it in the other Transformers movies. And like I thought it was a little bit of a stretch when he got like the arm, hand. Yeah. The only thing I didn't like about this movie, and I felt like this is where it was like that midpoint drag, is when we first got to Peru, and then like after getting on the plane, I wasn't too convinced of after everything that happened in the museum, and they were like, we need to go to Peru. Oh, I think I know where we're going. When the globe trotting happened and they were in the plane and we're like, okay, we have to destroy it to save our world type of deal. I kind of lost interest a little bit in the movie. Like that was a really low point for me. And then when they're trying to find the MacGuffin of it all, and they're down by the underground of Peru, and I was like, eh. And like in the story, I get it because they're like, well, we can't drive in the streets because of this parade and because we're robots, but you human-sized people can do it. So story-wise, it gave them an excuse to do something. And the same thing with Anthony Ramos and Mirage being like, or Mirage telling Optimus Prime that Anthony Ramos can go and steal the thing in the museum. Same bit. He's like, oh, we're robots. We can't do that, but a human can do that. It was a lot easier.
Yeah.
So like, story-wise, they put a lot of like, well, the humans can do it. So to me, it helped and hurt the movie because they used it as a device to keep the humans relevant and important to the story, but also it felt kind of cheesy in a way that is like, okay, I get it. They're smaller than you. But then they go in Peru and they find the secret underground cave and like this little world. But then when they needed help, they were just bamming through Peru when they said they couldn't do that. So I was like, all right, guys, what's going on here? But then once they met with the was it Primals is what they're called? The movie got better from there.
Well, that festival, because I listened to the Deadline did an interview with the director. And that festival is a real thing. That's a real festival that they have in Peru.
Oh, I'm sure.
And they actually went to Peru and shot at a bunch of remote locations. I don't know. I was here for it because to me, like, the whole thing of the movie is finding value in humans who think that they don't have value in themselves, aka Anthony Ramos. And Optimus has always been for lack of a better term, like the one who has optimism. Like he's very optimistic about what the humans can do. At least, well, actually not at first, but then he eventually warms up because he starts to see their value in the tasks that they've been given and their help. When he, he's like, just his appreciation for them helping him.
I think what I liked a lot about, Optimus Prime in this movie is that even going back and watching the first Transformers movie, he was all about we need to protect the humans at all cost. But now you have Rise of the Beast, which is technically a prequel to that movie, and it takes place in the 90s. We're seeing an Optimus Prime who is unsure of the humans. He's like, I don't need them. I know, he even said to Bumblebee, I know you had a relationship with the humans, and so Bumblebee gets it. But then with Optimus, like, well, I don't have that, and I just want to go home. Like, if you look at the beginning of Bumblebee, there was a war on Cybertron that we got to see a little bit, and Optimus Prime 4 years later, or however many years later, I don't think it's 4, a little bit, maybe more than that, but like, I want to get home. That's my main objective, and this is the tool for me to get home. So like, I don't trust them, but if they're going to help me, my end goal is just to get home. And we see that change throughout the movie, as well as we get some great advice from the Maximal. That's right, it was Maximals. The Maximals were their names. And from Ron Perlman's character, the Gorilla Transformer.
Optimus Primal.
Optimus Primal, thank you. And we got to see how he's like, even Optimus was like, wait a minute. Or Optimus Prime, he was like, you trust these humans with the MacGuffin? Why would you do that? I don't know what the name is. I'm just gonna call him MacGuffin. You trust the humans with this? And he's like, well, yeah, because we've been around here, and for generations we've been here, and they've been, they helped us. And he was able for years gain the trust of the people and kind of also stay in hiding.
I also like that there was an element of sacrifice where, Optimus was ultimately saved by Anthony Ramos, but you see that he was willing. He was ready. He was ready to go up with him, like, to protect his team and protect the world. Like, he was willing. Like, that's the lengths that, like, I like seeing that aspect of Optimus, like knowing that he's willing to sacrifice himself, because we know he's going to live.
Yeah. And also, again, because we know this is a prequel, we even talk about the death of Bumblebee in the film. Like, he definitely sacrificed himself, and he got a brutal death-ish in the movie. Then he got revived because of the waves that were going in. He happened to be on a rock or something.
Yeah, he was on a rock that was charged with energon.
Right.
And the only way to get the energon is by a massive event, which is what the MacGuffin key opened up and sent and activated all the energon. That was
it was Unicron was his name that was kind of invading. He was like, he's basically Galactus.
Yeah, he's like the ultimate big bad.
Right. And he was, I guess in case he's kind of teased, because he's not dead. He just couldn't consume anymore.
He was too massive to come through.
Right. But then they end up breaking the MacGuffin, and then he got sucked back up. So he wasn't able to teleport into Earth and destroy it or whatever. So with that, like, I thought it was kind of cool that Michelle Yeoh's character, she voiced the Eagle. And that was kind of interesting what they did with that one as well. Like, she was helping out. She was kind of one of the first Maximals that we met. And then they kind of infected her, and they had to kill her. Another sense of, and it was kind of a dark moment in the movie when you think about it. It was like, you can go ahead. You can go ahead and kill me because I'm infected. Like, that's deep stuff right there.
Like, there's no coming back. Like, I'm done.
I was like, damn, that's pretty hardcore, And we also had some great action scenes. That even the stuff that happened in the museum was pretty cool, and also funny as well. But yeah, and then to me, they had one hell of a finale.
You mean the end credit scene?
No. The fight scene.
Oh, absolutely! That final battle scene. Once again, the movie kind of ruined. The trailer kind of ruined the movie in that aspect, because like, you see you see Bumblebee get stabbed, but then you're also in the trailer. They show the scene where which it ends up being his return, his like main return of that scene where he's falling in the sky, shooting, getting everybody. It's like, why would you show us that? That's a huge moment in the film. That's us learning that he's back alive, and like, this is his big opening return, and you give that away in the trailer.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on, guys.
Come on, do better.
No, for
Do
real.
better.
Like that's
Yeah.
a bad boo boo.
That's a bad
Because it would have
movie.
made that
Uh,
moment hit a lot harder.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think you go back and you see Optimus sacrifice. I think in that moment he realized that the humans are worth saving, so to speak, and only because that Anthony Ramos was willing to kind of go down the line for Mirage.
Yeah.
He saw the dedication he had for the Transformers and the Autobots. So why not do the same for them?
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about her much, but Dominique Fishback, another great role in the movie.
Well, I don't. She was significant, and I think maybe she will be significant moving forward. Like she might have a bigger role moving forward. Whereas
Right.
she was like she was like the encyclopedia. Like they had it. They needed
Yes.
information. She was like boom. Like she was the internet basically.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, she was definitely I mean, she was a lead, but I feel like that they didn't give her much. They gave her story in the beginning, like her curiosity. She's like, I'm more knowledgeable than the curators in the museum.
Yeah.
And
and
and she knew a lot more.
yeah,
but
showcasing
like,
that was good. Like with the whole
yeah.
with being a woman trying to succeed in that field and trying to be seen as a woman of color in the mid 90s, like trying not to be forgotten, but trying to showcase your skills and what you can bring to the team. And that what she didn't get from them, what we saw her give to the Autobots and the Maximals.
Yeah, and then also at the end of the movie, we see that she's on like 60 Minutes or something, and kind of like she's given the credit for the discovery of the underground city that was in Peru, and so like and Anthony Ramos goes, "Way to go, Brooklyn," or something along those
Yeah.
lines. Yeah, I feel like that about story wise, she wasn't given much, unfortunately, after we started going to Peru, but she was there for the action and kind of destroying. She was there doing all this, and it's like.
Well, she closed. I mean, she's the one who closed the portal, essentially.
Yes, yeah. But about as far as story wise, like they were really more focusing on the relationship between Anthony Ramos, his brother, and Mirage when it came down to like the heartstrings of the
Correct.
movie. And she was very much like the tech savvy person, like you said, the encyclopedia. And that was kind of her role. But maybe moving forward, she might have something more to do. Maybe give her more of a personality, or not personality, but more of like a personal story if they wanted to go down further with that. But I thought her role was good. Like I enjoyed her role. But definitely the crux of the film was Anthony Ramos, and also what a great lead for him.
Absolutely.
In this movie.
And I am excited for what they set up at the end, which was
Tell him.
Arguably, which in the interview, they didn't shoot that until a month before the movie came out. How crazy is that?
I think I have an interview I can pull up. It could have been similar, but I got it from comicbook.com. They interviewed them, or somebody interviewed them, and it was from a producer, Anthony and the director, and it was like in consequence. But they filmed a version of that, where it did not say. It said something else in the back of the car.
It was Sector 7,
Sector 7,
which was like from the first Transformers movie.
From the first, yeah. But I don't think we said it. Tell them, Ernesto. What was
so
the
they're gonna do the G.I. Joe Transformers crossover, which was like the biggest bombshell in the theater. Like everybody was going nuts, and I think you know what, that on top of the movie already being good, that was just a beautiful added bonus. That's like you just hooked a bunch of people on for this trilogy because you gave us something to look forward to.
Yeah,
and it's something completely different.
It completely shocked me. I applaud them for getting that done, because I was like, get out of here. Really? This is what we're doing. I didn't think you had it in you to make this a crossover. Then going back to what I was saying, like I had a little bit issue with like Anthony Ramos becoming Iron Man, but then when the Joes got involved, I was like, I'm on board for this now. Now we're talking. We can give me Iron Mans all day. You know, you teased it before we even knew what was going on. Like that to me, I was 100% on board for. And so like, I don't know, like the possibilities are there. Like you generated so much more excitement for the next Transformers movie. And honestly, that's how you make money.
We're getting that. We're getting
Right
the
there.
Hasbro CU, the HCU.
It's about damn
When I
time.
wonder if there's going to be any connectedness to the GI Joe movies that are already there, that are already canon.
We don't need it.
No, we don't need it.
We
But
don't
I
need to
mean,
connect it.
why all the other Transformers movies are? Like, I wonder what is this like, because that IP is still. I mean, it's still there. I mean, we just had the Snake Eyes movie, like less than a couple years ago.
That's true. We had Snake Eyes, less than a couple years ago, and then we also had the two G.I. Joe's movies. The one with Channing Tatum as the lead, and then the other one with The Rock kind of took over at that point.
Of course.
So, of course he did. Like you had Brendan Fraser for Journey to the Center of the Earth, and then Dwayne Johnson took over. It's like, where's Brendan Fraser? I don't know. It's my franchise now.
Dead.
He's dead. G.I. Joe, Dwayne Johnson, my franchise now. Fast and Furious, he tried. Boy, did he try. But Vin Diesel was like, no, you're not part of the family, brother. Anyway, I found the video from comicbook.com. Again, the first voice you're going to hear is the producer, then Anthony Ramos, and then the director.
Also produced on the G.I. Joe movies, and there is an awesome G.I. Joe tease at the end of Rise of the Beast. How did that come together? What are you guys thinking about playing there?
We've talked about it probably since the beginning of the franchise because the fans have been like, come on, when are you going to do Joe, right? The truth of the matter is there's so many great Transformers characters, we didn't feel like we needed to just rush into G.I. Joe. By creating a character, Anthony's character, who can't get a job, right? The world is not easy on him. And at the end of this movie, he gets offered the greatest job ever. So that's really, in a way, how it happened, because we finally found a way to, like, organically bring it in.
I knew about it. It took a long process to get that approved. There's a lot of producers, a lot of people involved in that. But finally, they did, probably about 3 weeks ago, to be honest. There was a different thing on that card, but thankfully, we were able to, get that approved. And I'm just excited to merge the worlds, and to see how we can really expand the world of G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Noah had problems with his job and getting one. When developing his character, I was like, it'd be nice if the organization, which is the military, was the one to come and say, hey, we're taking care of your brother and your problems. But G.I. Joe feels really strong. And then I remember the graphic novel, the comic book. So when I presented it to the studio and the team, and they all saw the graphic novel, I felt like I saw their eyes sort of light up and be like, okay, now we have an outlet. And it just opens doors for, like, where we want to go next. There are a few ideas I have in terms of where we can go, what kind of Joe's characters are in a mix, and, how grounded we can make the Joes as well.
We're also produced on the G.I.
So, I mean, that's exciting. And to say that they had an opportunity that it almost didn't happen, like how can you be an executive on the film and the studio and be like, how can you not be excited about this? Like how to me it's a no-brainer. Of course we're going to mix it up. I'm sure there could be a couple of legalities behind it, but I mean, looks like they made it happen for the right reasons as well.
Oh, I'm here for it. I want to find this comic book and I want to add it to my collection because I already know it's probably going to be a thing. But
so I do own a Transformers graphic novel, and they have mixed with many different franchises. I've seen the one for G.I. Joe. They've also have a run with a Transformers crossover with Terminator.
Really?
And yes. And the one that I own is the Transformers crossover with Back to the Future.
That's awesome.
So they've definitely done this before. And I mean, Hasbro, I believe, owns both G.I. Joe and Transformers, and it's also under the same Paramount family. So again, no brainer. And like I said before, this generates so much excitement for what this could be. And quite honestly, I know within the last 2 movies that they're trying to fit it within the Michael Bay 5 films. But if this crossover means that it doesn't work within the Michael Bay films, that's okay. These can be its own thing.
I mean, he still produced this movie, so I think it's still within his universe.
Yeah. But even if it's not like 100% canon, we're like, no, never mind, this is going to be its own standalone trilogy, then I'm okay with that. If it's for the sacrifice of the Joes crossing over with Transformers, it's fine. It's okay. It's fine. but yeah, to me that was the biggest shock in the movie. I was definitely not anticipating that. Um, and yeah, it really made the movie a lot better than like it made a good movie to like not I wouldn't say a great movie, but it definitely gave that extra push. Like even as the director said, it's like yeah, we definitely had something else on the other side of that car, but when you say like he said that going into the military, but when you say GI Joes, it just makes it feel strong, and he's right. Like that, it gives it that punch, and also it gives it that like, come next time. You thought you were done with the Transformers. Wait till you see this.
Yeah.
And now that made me from having low expectations going into this one and not really kind of being surprised at what this movie was and kind of like not really going in there 100% like looking forward to what I was about to watch because I've seen other Transformers movies before. It's almost like I know what I'm walking myself into, so my expectations are low. But now going into the next one, it's high.
I agree.
It's high. It's high now. But Ernesto, let's go into our final thoughts.
I actually really enjoyed it. I think I maybe enjoyed it a little bit more than you. I just think it was fun. It was a fun movie. It was a refreshing reboot for the.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was a refreshing reboot for the Transformers IP, and I think that they're going in a new direction. And this GI Joe Transformers, I'm here for it. I'm very curious to see what's gonna come of this. From what I hear, they're in talks because Deadline they did like a 30-minute podcast with the director where he was talking about that. He talked about obviously that main thing. He talked about the visual effects. It was over between 1,500 and 1,800 visual effects shots done in this film.
Wow.
Because he said he really wanted to focus on like seeing Optimus up close and like like when you see the cars transform, it's very practical. Like you see all the parts as it's transforming, and that was one of the things that he really wanted to focus on because he said Michael Bay would focus on really wide, far away shots because it's really expensive to show robots on as for visual effects. But in order to tell that story, he had to get these up close, really detailed shots of the robots, which we do see in the film, which I think is what brought us into a much like more like just a better story.
Like probably like a more personal story as well because we're able to get some emotion there too.
Correct. Yeah, and I think those are the thing that and obviously the GI Joe thing at the end. Those were the things that really sold the film, and I'm just excited to see what comes of it in the future.
And it's funny because we were going into this week trying to like, do we review Transformers? Is it worth our time? And we both said eventually, obviously we said yes on doing it. For more curiosity out of anything, it's like, was Bumblebee a fluke? Was it just the one good movie and the rest was just going to be all right? But no, it was a good blockbuster, fun movie, and it had a lot of heart in there. And like it was like. They didn't like overthrow you with too many Transformers and too many confusing action pieces. I can tell you the majority. I couldn't tell you the villains except for Scorch or whatever his name was. Like I know he was the main villain. He had his two goons with him. But like as far as the Autobots, yeah, you had Mirage. You had I think her name was Ares was the other one, and then you had obviously Optimus and Bumblebee, and then you had the Primals or the Maximals, and they all. Like I was able to follow that story along very easily, and it wasn't that confusing at all. A couple of the middle part for me was a little bit, a little slow. But once we got introduced and got more involved with the story, and I think the story helped. The story, a strong story, like we said with anything else, it was able to bring that together. You had that kind of strong beginning of establishing the human stories, and then when we got to the Maximals, it really solidified the connection between the Autobots and the Transformers, as well as the Primals, with the human connection. And I think that right there paid off for the epic climactic ending that we got with the epic fight scene. And with that, to me, like I love the score from the original Transformers, like da 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 da, and when the Optimus was sacrificing himself, and when Anthony Ramos saved him, and he kind of pulled him back, and Optimus Primal also was there to kind of catch them and save the day. Once they were running and they played the Autobots theme song, I got goosebumps. Like, oh man, they just did that. They just played the theme as they were kind of running as being heroes. It's like something I wasn't expecting, because like that's a theme I haven't heard really since like the first movie. And they played it like little bits in here, but like they didn't play it at all during Bumblebee. So it's been a long time since I heard that tune. So when I heard the theme kind of playing it in that epic climactic moment, I was like, ooh, that's good. That's good. That's a good score right there. And I listened to it immediately after I watched the movie. And, you know, at least box office numbers is doing pretty well worldwide. It has $193 million. Domestically right now, it's $73 million. It came in number one at the box office, which it was on a tight race with Across the Spider-Verse. It ended up beating it by $5 million. But like, also, just to kind of put this in perspective, which I don't know if this has ever happened before. I have to do a lot more research to kind of figure this out. But the top three in the box office: Transformers: Rise of the Beast, then Across the Spider-Verse, then The Little Mermaid. All three movies, the leads were it's diverse, people of color.
Oh yeah, for the top three.
You have for the top three, and I was like, oh, that's something I don't think I've ever seen before. At least as I was keeping up with the weekend box offices, I don't remember having the top three being, you know, like you have like a primarily diverse cast hitting in all three films. So I thought that was kind of cool to see. But yeah, I mean, even with the tight race with Transformers coming out on top, it shows that people are still interested in this franchise.
I think this was a welcome thing for them.
Yeah. So who knew? Transformers, a welcome, like Ernesto said, a refreshing reboot that, you know, and then with the G.I. Joe was the cherry on top of what made this movie pretty good and a fun watch. But anyway, there you go. That's our spoiler review on Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. It's in theaters now, and like we've said before, it was actually a pleasant surprise. So go out into theaters if you haven't watched it. We kind of spoiled a lot of the movie for you, but nevertheless, it was a pretty good movie. But with that, Ernesto, tell our listeners what they can look forward to next week.
It is time. It's finally being released. We will be reviewing The Flash, which is based off the Flashpoint DC comic series. This is going to kind of be the end cap of the Snyderverse and what the thread is going to be into the James Gunn DCEU universe. You know, I am really excited to see this film because there's a lot more people besides Ezra Miller, because this person is troubled. You know, this person's been through done a lot of really bad things, and hurt a lot of good people. And, you know, it seems like the subsequent thing of that was to not let him promote the film, which he really hasn't. I think there were some reports that he made a rare appearance on the red carpet, and he did give a little speech, and we're gonna get into more of that next week, because I don't think that you should not go see it because of him, because what is the budget on this film?
Like over $200 million.
Like, he's not the only, the amount of visual effects artists, all the other actors, like the directors, he is the Flash. And, you know, we'll see what that looks like on the other side of this, whether or not James Gunn, are they going to give him are they giving him a second chance?
Well,
I mean, I don't know.
The director said and this is from the director saying, he's like, the director said that if they make a Flash 2, Ezra Miller will be his Flash. So he's come out and said that. But to the point of the director, is that up to you? It's up to James Gunn. Yeah. So James Gunn has the end all be all on what the future is going to hold for the Flash. But I think this movie has a lot of hype around it. Not only is this this is the flashpoint that's going to be on the big screen. You have how is this going to set forward the, kind of push forward the MCU. You said like yourself, sorry, how is this pushing forward the DCU with James Gunn? How is this maybe capping off the Zack Snyder universe, and as well as the return of Michael Keaton as Batman?
Absolutely.
And that's already exciting itself. And who knows, we might see other characters or other people reprise their roles. We are dealing with the multiverse. So, I think that's what they're calling it, right? Yeah. So we are dealing with that. So you don't know what other things that might pop up in this movie, and it becomes very exciting to see kind of all this unfold. And it's been talked about for months, even years leading up to this movie. So it has me really excited to see how this all unfolds, and I'm very excited that we're only a couple days away from watching it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. It's just
I'm excited.
It's just all the Ezra Miller stuff is.
I know
it is a little. It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah,
but I think it's going to do well. I mean, Michael Keaton is a legend. Like if not, go for him alone.
Yeah, and then also in terms of just like how it's going to look in the box office as well. Is the Flash, how big is the Flash going to be? It also has competition with obviously the Transformers movie and Across the Spider-Verse. It also has competition with the other new release that's coming out, Elemental, and also Wes Anderson's new movie, Asteroid City, which I'm pretty sure it does come out the same weekend as well. So it has like, how many factors is it playing into like, well, I'm going to take my kid to go see a Pixar movie. I'm more of an I love Wes Anderson, so I'm going to go watch that movie. So how many people are going to be like diluting maybe some of the box office return that the Flash is going to get? Or are all the comic book nerds are coming out to see what this movie's all about?
Sure.
We'll find out all next week. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, very excited to talk about the Flash and all of it, all of the drama that's surrounding it. It's also the best part about it. But there you go. That's all the show we have for you guys this week. As always, if you want more from us, you can find us on our social media channels on Instagram at boxoffice_bingers, as well as our Facebook and TikTok page at boxofficebingers, and our Twitter page at boxofficebinger without the S. Right now, we're still working on something new, but you can also find us on YouTube at Box Office Bingers. We're working on video. So far, you can watch the Fast X episode on our YouTube channel, as well as this episode right here this right here will be on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see our smiling faces for about 2 hours, we've been probably talking so far, we're on YouTube, and so we're working with it. Ernesto's doing a great job of kind of like pushing us forward into the video stuff.
I mean, I'm trying, and I know there are people like, well, you just have to do this and this. Like, listen, I have 4 kids and I have a full-time job. I'm trying to do what I can. I'm working on it.
You're doing a great job.
We've got video for just me and you. Now, as far as bringing on a guest, it's just a hurdle I'm currently facing, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, but he's working on it, and as well as we're trying to improve as we go. So select episodes will be available on our YouTube channel. We'll put it that way. And when it's just the two of us, most likely you'll be able to find it on YouTube from here on out. So when we have a guest, go back to wherever you listen to podcasts. For now, and regardless, wherever you listen to podcasts, we will still be there.
Exactly.
We're still there. But we're still working with a whole bunch. We're trying to understand the social media thing as well. We're just putting it out there and see what sticks to the wall at this point.
We're just having a good time, really.
We're having a good time. Like we talked about, like, I don't know how long about Transformers. You want to have a good time? We have 100 other episodes you can listen to. We're just all having a good time.
We have a plethora of stuff.
Exactly. Well, I thank all of our listeners. Thank you, each and every one of you, for coming on our show each and every week and just listening to us talk about movies. Really do appreciate it. Come back next week for more movie fun. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
And Ernesto Santos. See ya.